If you're having trouble climbing or you clicked on this, not even attempted your climb, let's break this down and get you airborne ASAP. First off, cancel your assumptions. Climbing requires less upper body strength than you think. Most people assume that your biceps should just magically do most of the work to lift your body vertically, a lot like a standard pull-up, but I would argue your average beginner can't do a full pull-up, and climbing the pole is a beginner level skill, so make it make sense. Well, I'm about to. I'm jumping straight into the most important climb every beginner needs to know, and that is the forearm climb. So stand behind your pole, take your dominant arm, and place it diagonally behind the bar. If you have a mirror in front of yourself, you should see your hand firmly grabbing the pole and your elbow peeking out the other side. Now looking at the side profile of this same arm, the angle between the forearm and the upper arm should be slightly less than 90 degrees. An angle of less than 90 allows for optimal extension through this arm. As we start our climb, this arm will actually be pushing our bodies away from the pole in a scapular protraction. This pushing motion can be reenacted by leaning forward towards the pole and pushing back and away through the shoulder and back muscles. Allow the body to fall in towards the pole and practice pushing away. Moving on, place the hands straight up and grasp the bar. This top arm is straight. There should be no bending at the elbow. Having bending in this arm's elbow will intuitively activate the biceps, which we absolutely do not want to do. We are pulling up through the back and shoulder muscles in a scapular depression. Practice this by coming up and down through the heels as you pull up. Now let's use both arms together. Coming up and down through the heels, you should be pushing with the forearm in a protraction and pulling through the top arm in a scapular depression. You should notice your chest is turning slightly as you push and pull. This is a sign you're doing it right. If you're only going up and down with no rotation in the chest, chances are you're using your bicep muscles. Repeat the setup and make sure you've got the mechanics of this push and pull down before you move on. Now, if you've watched my video on inverts and the conditioning series I've released for it, your ears should be burning at the sound of the word scapula. The group of muscles that make up this region are vital for pole dancers. As mentioned, the depression and retraction of the scapula are the major drivers in the climb. If you feel your setup for the climb is correct, but the mechanical strength isn't quite there, I would suggest the following. For the protracted pushing in the bottom arm, scapular push-ups are your best friend. Not only do these target the scapula, but also strengthen the core. Similarly, the planche lean press forces a ton of protraction, but also some depression, so you're hitting both motions in this exercise. Both exercises can be done unilaterally, which best mimics the forearm climb, being that only half of our scapula is in a protracted state. Really awesome mind-muscle connection can be made performing these. And side note, if you have any interest in handstands, building up your protraction is key. Next is legs. Using the leg that is on the same side as your forearm, place that leg diagonally behind the pole. Looking directly at that leg, you should see your knee peeking out from one side and your foot pointing out the other direction. There's a little fatty portion on the inside of our knees. That's where the pole should be placed, and no deeper. Our thighs touching the pole during our climb is a big no-no. Looking down at that foot, you should see the front of your shin/ankle pressing behind the pole. If you're seeing a flared foot, get in the habit of pointing your toes. Side profile check, my leg is placed pretty high and close to my forearm. Much like the forearm, this leg will be pushing us away from the pole. Try pushing away with this leg while pushing and pulling through the scapula, like we were doing initially. Have the other leg fly back behind you. Most beginners are tempted to jump here and start using the biceps to lift off the ground. I cannot stress how important it is to slow down and make sure your form is spot on before beginning this initial lift. This step is more about trying to push yourself away from the pole horizontally rather than pulling up vertically. Even though we are pushing ourselves horizontally, however, you'll notice I'm still moving up. This is because I placed my knee high. As I push away through this leg, I'm extending my leg at my knee joint, which displaces me in a vertical and horizontal direction away from the pole. After achieving this initial lift, you can place the other leg in front of the pole. Notice how my second leg has joined the first at an equal height. I have also placed this leg diagonally across the pole. Looking at the side profile, the inner knee portion / knee pit is pressing into the side of the pole. At this point, you should be crushing the pole between your knees. This grip is so powerful, we practically don't even need our arms. If you're experiencing slipping at this point, it could be that you placed your knees too low in your setup. I also find that some beginners shoving down through their legs as a means to stay up. This will just make your legs extend, so focus on squeezing the heck out of your pole at this point and feeling the sensation of the pole tugging on your skin. Also, cold poles are much harder to climb, so try warming up the metal a little bit. For the next phase in our climb, it's all about legs. The quads and glutes are squeezing as we hinge up through the hips. It's a lot like a squat when you think about it. It's just in this squat, the bottom portion of the legs got hacked off and our knees are our feet. Because our knees and bottom half portion of our legs are squeezing so tightly on the pole, that part of our body stays put as everything above the knee gets moved up by our glutes and our quads contracting. Again, I'm barely using my arms here as I push up. The arms are merely here to help me balance and help me pull up just a tad. I told you climbing is all in the legs. As you bring the pole to your chest, now it's time to switch your forearm. To do this, simply take off your forearm and place it straight above your head. Looking at the opposite arm, you'll notice it's lost a lot of its straightness, and it's now bent. This will become the new forearm. However, thinking back to step 1, the forearm must be placed diagonally behind the pole with an angle of no more than 90 degrees. This is honestly the hardest part for me to get my beginners to remember. And this is me giving you a dirty look so that you remember. We finally come to our final step. Remember how the side of our scapula that has our forearm is protracting and the top arm is in a scapular depression? Well, we're going to use those mechanics a lot here. Our legs and knees are loosening their death grip on the pole, so it's up to the upper body to hold us in place until the knees can be reunited with the pole. It's the core and the hip flexors that lift the legs up. Absolutely do not try to pull up from the arms here. Again, the arms are just keeping our body pushed horizontally away from the pole. Many will find after re-gripping their legs that the thighs may have made contact with the pole. To avoid this, I always use the shin of the back leg to push my hips horizontally away from the pole, reuniting my knees with the pole. You can also mimic this step on the ground by setting up your arms and lifting and locking your legs up on the pole. Now all that's left to do is repeat everything over and over until you reach the ceiling or however high you're trying to go. Hopefully at this point you'll agree with me that climbing isn't all that bad, just very technical. Like everything with pole, but hey, once you've got it, you've got it. And once you master your climb on a static pole, you can switch over to a spin, and climbing on that is a little bit different, and I will be making a tutorial on how to climb a spin pole so that it looks as smooth as butter. Also guys, make sure to comment which part of the climb was the hardest for you, and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and make sure to subscribe. Until then, I'll see you guys on the next one.